This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
All right, thanks, Scott Shannon. Glad you are with us. Write down our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. It's 800-941-SEAN if you want to join us. All right, I want to give you an update. There's been another incident, another two incidents, or three if you conclude the elderly person this weekend that has been a victim of this so-called knockout game. And we went through after this woman, Emma Roller, over at, I think it's Salon or wherever she works for, writes this column attacking me as a knockout game truther. And then I went through and I listed all of the different incidents in which I go back to, let's see, October the 11th, November the 6th, November the 9th, November the 10th, November the 17th. And I gave you all the specifics. I won't go through them all again. And the phenomenon continues. Yet some people want to put their head in the sand and blame those that actually tell the truth and report on the news and look at a double standard that exists in the media, because the media spent an awful lot of time talking about the issue of race in America when it came to George Zimmerman versus Trayvon Martin. And so why is it there this double standard? Anyway, joining us now is the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson. He's with the group Bond, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny, and the Reverend Oliver White of Grace Community United Church of Christ. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Sean. Merry Christmas to you, your family, your staff, and all your radio listeners.
Thank you, Reverend. I appreciate that. Reverend White, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. And I presume you are doing well, too.
What do you think all these incidents, these knockout game incidents that we keep hearing about? What are your thoughts?
Are you asking me or are you asking the Reverend?
I'm asking you. You're both reverends. I'm asking Reverend Oliver White.
I'm glad you consider me a reverend, Mr. Hannity. Last time we talked, I thought you had some doubts about that.
Well, I might have just been messing with you, but I tend to do that once in a while.
But nevertheless, I'm thinking that nothing's changed in America, and the media, the fact that they're not reporting that, to the extent that I think you would like to see it being reported, is a good thing, because then we're gonna scare people. People are scared enough as it is anyway, and I think the media has an opportunity to exploit this and make it more than what it is. And next thing you know, we're going to have a lot of armed European Americans, because the media has warned the people that young black men are out to get them, more or less.
Well, I mean, these incidents, most of the incidents that I have seen, as a matter of fact, that's all that I have seen. And we've been looking very hard for other incidents. But I've interviewed law enforcement. I've interviewed other people knowledgeable with this, quote, phenomenon. And it is happening. And it seems to be a phenomenon more with young black men than with any other racial group that we can see at this point.
Well, that's what you see, but that's not what's really happening. I mean,
do you know?
In the gated cities of America, a lot of the same kind of thing is going on. But
well, hang on a second. Reverend, can you name one example? Because I'll be glad to highlight it, because I don't care. This is not about race to me. This is about human beings being human beings to each other. But when 76 and 80-year-old men and women and children are getting beaten up and sucker punched from behind, and it ends up on YouTube, we've got a problem if people are making, quote, a game out of that.
So what shall we do? I mean, you're making more out of it than it is. I mean, the vast majority of African-American males don't do that.
Agreed. But we're talking about those that are doing this, and we're talking about stopping it by bringing attention to it.
Well, then we need to increase law enforcement and arrest those who are doing it and put their parents in a jail cell next door to them. And then we need to arrest corporate society, which, interesting enough, I understand your show is paid for by corporate dollars. Well, why don't we use some of those corporate dollars to provide jobs for some of these young men? I mean, they're bored, they're uneducated, they don't know what to do, and they can't be what they haven't seen.
It sounds like an excuse you're making. Let me quote the Reverend Al Sharpton. I don't often agree with him, but he called this game, quote, game. He said it's insane thuggery. It's unequivocally wrong. These kids are targeting innocent people, and in many cases specifically targeting Jewish folks. He went on to say, we would not be silent if it were the other way around, and we will not be silent now. This behavior is racist, period, and we won't tolerate it. And I give him credit for speaking out.
There are not too many things I agree with the Reverend Al Sharpton on, but I am definitely in agreement with him on that point. I mean, it is racist. Racist with a different definition. I mean, of course, it's been stated that black people cannot be racist because we don't have the power. On the other hand, these young people are responding to the way that the world is, the world that they see. When you don't have a role model teaching you or showing you another route, well, what are you going to do? You're going to take a favor with those with whom you consider to be your peer group. And unfortunately, America has more gangs than we need, and we show more of the same thing on 48 Hours on television, for example. 95% of those presented on the perpetuators on 48 Hours happen to be African Americans. I mean, what kind of picture does that paint? The hip hop singers, African Americans, it seems, with their pants hanging low. This is what we're trying to. Our young people are trying to achieve because that's what they see.
What do you think, Reverend Peterson?
Sean, I never imagined that in America I would see groups of angry black thugs attacking unsuspecting white folks and knocking them out, in some cases killing them. And there's not a real outcry about this. This is racist. It is about race. It started back in 2008, and originally it was called polar bear hunting, and now they're calling it knockout. I have been saying for the last 22 years that white Americans, others need to start speaking out about these incidents. These young black people are very angry. Of course, they're angry because they're coming from failing homes, but once they leave home, they're told that their issue is racist and that white Americans are trying to hold them back. I guarantee you that had this been a different story where young white males were going around knocking out white people, whether they were young or old, male or female, there would be an outrage in this country from both blacks and whites about it. But due to the double standards, the liberal media and others refuse to tell the truth about black racism. These folks are allowed to get away with it. And I've been working with young black youth across the country for the last 23 years now, almost 24. And they are angry, Sean, and they have been taught to blame someone else for their problems. And we saw a real breakout of this during George Zimmerman's trial when Barack Obama said if he had a son, he would look like Trayvon Martin. That, in a way, sent an uncoded message out that, you know what, it is about race. And young black people were sending messages on their Facebook pages and emails and things like that, that if George got off, white Americans would be under attack, that they were going after white votes. And that's what's going on now. 2 years ago, last year, the year prior, we saw these people breaking into white businesses, Asian businesses, and stealing and robbing the business in broad daylight, cameras on them. There was nothing really done about that. And now we see this attack happening. If we don't start dealing with this attack, these things in a strong manner, it's only going to get worse, because when you don't deal with anger in the right way or angry people, you bring the worst out of them. And these folks are feeling that they can attack white folks and excuses will be made for it, that they're going to get away with it because it's someone else's fault and not their fault. This is wrong, and we got to deal with it. It's hate crime, and we have to deal with it in the same manner that we would deal with it if white folks were doing it to black people.
In all due respect, Reverend, I agree with some of what you're saying. On the other hand, I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's racism. I think it's a perception. I spoke with a student today and asked her, had she heard about this thing called knockout game. I said, what do you think of that? This is a young lady, a young African-American woman who maybe 16, 17 years old, come from a struggling family and all of that. She said, I think it's ignorant. That's the first thing. I said,
if it was white people doing it, would you feel that it was not racism? Would you feel exact same way about it if white Americans were doing it to black people?
Of course.
You would. Well, explain this. These young black youth, for the most part, are living in black communities, exceptions to the rule, of course. Why don't we hear them attacking black people and doing the same way? If it's not a race issue, they would be doing it to blacks. There's only one possible case that I've heard of where the man may have been black, and I don't know yet. It was a homeless guy that was knocked out and possibly killed by these folks. It has been reported that that guy was black, but other than that, it's been purely white Americans and Jewish Americans. Why don't we see them doing it to black people?
Well, there's a good reason for that. For one thing, the primary reason they do it is because they want money. So they don't perceive of black people as having money.
But they're not robbing the people. For the most part, they're not robbing the victims. They're just knocking them out, laughing about it, thinking that it's a funny thing. They're not taking anything from them.
Well, that's what's ignorant.
But why don't you call it what it is? We need to start uniting America rather than dividing America. Why don't you call it what it is so we can deal with it? And when these folks know that we're not going to put up with this, they'll stop doing it. But as long as you are excusing it and not calling it what it is, especially being a reverend, they're going to continue to do it. It's getting worse over the years. I've seen it happen myself.
Well, so what do you recommend we do?
That's a good question.
That we build more jails and incarcerate these young people?
What I recommend is what we've been doing for the last 23 years, rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man, putting men and women back in their homes, getting married and guiding their children. And secondly, if these people commit these type of acts, punish them and not send them to some jail where they have a color TV, better meals than you and I get. We're out working. We have to punish them. And when they know that those things are happening, I guarantee you that they will stop doing what they're doing. We must not put up with this. This is not good. It's not good for the country. And I also encourage white Americans and all Americans who understand that this is wrong. We need to unite together, rally together, insist that the lawmakers take care of this and not hide it. The media need to report it as it is. Otherwise, I promise you, it's just going to get worse rather than getting better.
So what should the headline read? Black youth out to attack white vulnerable people.
It should read that.
Imagine the aftermath of something like that. I mean, that would only add more insult to injury.
But I think you're wrong because a lot of white Americans are afraid to stand up and fight back. They're not standing up and fight back. So if they reported this as is, I think most people, white Americans, will feel safer. They will feel good about it because they would know then that the law would take care of this issue. But as long as you're not reporting it as is, it's only going to get worse. I've noticed that the liberal media, when they report it, they don't say black thugs attacking white Americans. They say teenagers. They don't even mention the color of these people. Whereas if white folks attack black people, they say, hey, this could possibly be racist. White man or white people attack black folks, and they really express it. And they do cause the anger in most black people that are already there toward white people. But I don't see white Americans for the most part, being racist and angry at black folks. So I don't expect them to just jump up and go grab a gun and go out killing black people. They're not doing it, and they have been under attack for a long time. And one other quick point, I've been saying that if we don't start dealing with these issues, we're going to have a race war on our hand. That is already happening, except that it's a one-sided race war where blacks are given permission to attack white Americans, and white Americans have been told that if you fight back, somehow or another you are racist, so they're restrained from standing up for themselves.
Right, we're almost
I'm
out
not
of time.
encouraging
Reverend
violence,
White,
but I say that if we
hang
don't
on a second. Well, let's give Reverend White the last word because we're running out of time here. Reverend, about 15 seconds.
Well, I really am happy with the way that the media is taking care of this, because to do it any other way, to mention the races that are involved or the ethnicities or cultures that are involved in this so-called knockout game would only blow up a stereotype and add insult to injury.
Let me ask one last question. Was it wrong for the media to focus so much on race in the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case?
I don't think I really don't see a problem with the way the media handled that.
This is insane.
I think it was far more than just black and white. I think it has something to do with the audacity of a person taking. I mean,
all right.
brother.
I don't have time to relitigate that case, but I've got to let you both go. I wish I had more time. Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, Reverend Oliver White, thank you both for being with us. Appreciate it.